Hey guys, this week in Japan, anytime we've turned on the television or looked at the internet or picked up a newspaper or any sort of media at all, the constant image we keep getting is this one. And for those of you who don't know these guys, it's a boy band. Well, it's sort of an old man band now, but 25 years ago they were developed as a boy band, and they're still really popular now. So they have a huge following in Japan, really popular. And as a group, you see them regularly in the media here, and as individuals as well. They've all had different careers doing different things, movies and other things as well. So they're really, the five of them are really famous, and you see them on TV all the time. You'd see a SMAP member on TV, you know, probably every day doing something, advertising something, or on TV shows and things. So they're very famous in Japan. And the reason that we're seeing so much of them this week is that it was released in an industry gossip magazine that they might be breaking up, because what happened was they have the company that founded them has been around for a long time. They founded, it's like an entertainment agent sort of thing, but a little bit more than that. They're quite, it's the concept that building bands sort of thing, that building, they had it with, what was the girls in England? There was the girl thing with Spice Girls. And they're a product of a company, weren't they? The company had a concept, and then they just collected together some girls and made that band. And it's the same with these guys. There's a company, it's called Johnny and Partners, or Johnny and Associates or something. And it's an Japanese company, and they did the same thing from the 60s. They were doing it. They actually, the first one they did was called the Johnnies, and that was a boy band, and it was really popular. And so they've done a series of them since then. And that sort of way of putting together bands is really popular here. I mean, that's how we got AKB48. Very clever man, very clever man who owns one of these sort of talent agency type companies. Came up with the concept of AKB48, and that's just brilliant, because he just cycles girls through. They've got a huge stable of girls, and they just cycle them through as they get too old, or they, you know, not popular anymore, or for whatever reason, they want more money or something. They just push them out and just bring in some new ones. So they can just keep doing that indefinitely. So very clever. So that sort of concept of building a band and just sort of, you know, having the idea for the band and then just sort of assembling it with different members is very popular here. We've got lots of examples. We've got SMAP, these guys, and we've got AKB48, and we've got SKE48, and we've got, you know, heaps of copies of that, and there's lots and lots of bands like that in Japan that have just been assembled, starting with the idea and then collecting the members, which is sort of reverse of what often happens with real talent, isn't it, you know? But SMAP is hugely popular, and what's happened apparently is that in that talent agency company that owns them, basically the company actually owns the name SMAP, and they've got the rights to all their music and everything, so they've really got them. And that's usually the case too. It's a bit different. I think a lot of Western countries now, entertainers have a lot more freedom and a lot more independence, whereas these guys here, you know, usually they're really well and truly owned by these companies, and that's the case in this case too. Apparently that company owns their names and their copyrights and everything. So in that company there's a manager that's worked with them since they started, and that manager has recently left this production company, and so 4 of the members were thinking about going with him and doing something else, and apparently that's as far as it got, right? But that was enough, and it came out in some rumor magazine, and then what happened was everybody's panicked, right? And the reason for making this video, I mean, to be honest, you know, who really cares? You know, maybe some of you guys are big SMAP fans and think this is really important, you know, and that's fair enough, but I think to most of us, we don't really care what happens to them, you know. They're filthy rich, really famous dudes. Whatever happens, they're going to be fine, you know. None of them's going to end up homeless or starving. All of them are fine, you know. But the reason that I made this video was more about some interesting cultural aspects that are illustrated by what's happening here. So for example, the first one is obviously the hero worship thing, and that is huge here. They call famous people talent, and whether or not they have talent or not is irrelevant. If you're a famous person here, you're called talent. You know, he is talent, they are talent, and the people on these TV shows are talent, and so guys like this, bands like this, have just huge fanatical followings, and there's a real thing. It's interesting in a society where standing out is sort of not encouraged. And again, you know, here's that paradoxes and contradictions thing we've talked about before, that everybody aims to try and just be the same as everybody else and not to stand out from the crowd and not to do anything exceptionally special or anything. Everybody just wants to just blend in and just do what everybody else is doing. Having said that, they put people that are sort of famous on pedestals big time, and I mean, of course, that happens in every culture, doesn't it? You know, famous people sort of get treated a bit specially, but in Japan in particular, you know, famous people are really held up like, you know, gods, you know, really sort of special, and everyone thinks it's a big deal, you know. And I made the mistake of commenting a couple of times this week about, you know, the SMAP thing had come up. We'd see something and I'd sort of comment on it, you know, okay, big deal. And people, oh, but you know, it's really serious, you know. And then that leads, so the first cultural thing that we can notice from this is look how famous people here, how seriously famous people here are treated. You know, we can see that just as an example of that. Another thing that's really interesting is what the big deal is about. I mean, these guys didn't actually do anything. They just talked about doing something. They talked about leaving that talent organisation. Now that would have probably meant that SMAP, as it's known, as that band, would cease to exist, because that company owns the name and all the rights. If the members left, obviously they could reform another band or something and do something else, but SMAP as it is now would cease to exist. And 4 of the members were talking about leaving, but one of them was intending to, well, hadn't thought about leaving, basically. So really nothing has really happened. They just talked about it, and then that got out. The fact that they'd been talking about doing something different got out, and that's all the fuss is about. And so, you know, what a big deal that the waves that caused. And then the other thing that is obviously stands out as the social thing is this apology aspect. So what we've been seeing, the image that we've seen, everybody in the media has been talking about this the last couple of days. And you change through the TV channels here, and they're almost on every channel, almost all day. And they talk, and that's the thing here on TV, when they talk about a topic like this, you know, in a Western country, if you had like Justin Bieber did something radical, it'd probably get mentioned on TV, but it'd probably be pretty short. Whereas here, they'll talk about something like this for hours. You turn on the TV and they'll be talking about it, and you turn it off and turn it back on 2 hours later, and they're still talking about it, examining it from every angle and getting different people's opinions and talking to different people about it, and it goes on and on and on, you know. And really, really big deal, that they haven't actually done anything, but what if they did, and what about this, and what about this, and what about this, you know? What could happen? And let's ask this guy what he thinks could happen, and what this guy thinks that could happen, and, you know, goes on and on and on. And then the apology thing, this is probably the most interesting cultural thing of it, maybe, is the apology. And the images that we keep seeing is the 5 of them standing there in their matching suits. A lot's been made of the fact that the 4 guys who were talking about leaving, they've all got their matching suits on, but the 4 guys who were talking about leaving have all got black ties on, and the guy who hadn't talked about leaving is wearing a blue tie, dark blue, but nevertheless, they're making a big deal about what do you think that means, you know? But the interesting thing is that they all got up, and then they all really, and because the first time I saw it was like, what have they done? Because usually when you see people on TV doing this, And they got the serious, solemn clothes on and the solemn face and being very solemn. And the first time I saw it on TV, I was like, what have they done? Because usually the last time something like this happened, one of the SMAP members got really drunk and was found by the police walking around in a park with no pants on, right? And that was a huge deal for months in the media. And he was up on TV apologising and bowing deeply, for that. So when I saw the 5 of them, I thought, God, what have these guys been caught doing? Because usually it's mild. It's not like they're all being caught with an ounce of cocaine or something. It's usually here when there's a big drama, it's usually pretty harmless stuff. It's not usually a big deal. I remember the girl from AKB48, we did a video about that. She shaved her head and got up and did the big, I'm sorry thing because she had a boyfriend. And it was in her contract to not have a boyfriend. A 22-year-old girl, it was in her contract to not have a boyfriend, and she had a boyfriend, and the gossip media found out about it, and so she shaved her head, to show how sorry she was. She shaved her head and got up on TV and cried and apologised. And this, I think this aspect of it would surprise a lot of people from other cultures, because who'd care? Who would care if some boy band, Australian boy band or American boy band or English boy band was talking about leaving their talent agency and changing their name or something? It'd probably get mentioned on some entertainment TV program or something, and that'd be it, wouldn't it? But here, the change, some sort of change, and then back to that point again, the 5 of them are standing there in their black suits with the solemn behaviour and their hands in front of them. They look like they're at a funeral, and it's that solemnness that's required of them. It's expected that they be very solemn, and then they all together all bow very deeply. Here it is, here's the image. All bow very deeply and apologise very sincerely for what they're apologising for is for upsetting their fans. That's what it is. And disappointing their fans and worrying their fans. That's what they're apologising for. Which just shows a really big cultural difference, doesn't it? Because I think in most countries, if fans thought that their favourite band was going to break and one member was going to leave, they're going to change their name, some people would get a little bit upset, but it wouldn't be a big deal, would it, really? And the band wouldn't be apologising for it, would they? They wouldn't all be in black suits on a stage somewhere bowing deeply and apologising for it. But it's the cultural difference. It's what they do here. It's what they do. And it's any sort of change is considered to be an upsetting thing here. And to be leaving the company that built you up too would be sort of a bit of a shameful thing in a way. Whereas here, most other countries, people would say, it's just business and that's understandable and no one would really care. Whereas here, it's like any sort of sudden change, they're talking about leaving the company that built them up, And apparently the reason why it's a big deal too is that from a business point of view, that entertainment company is super powerful apparently. And I've heard, or someone on one of these TV shows said that if they did leave that company would probably put pressure on everybody else to stop them getting more work. And sort of try and mess up their careers, sort of thing. But it's incredible, from an outsider's point of view, from the point of view of someone who's lived in other countries for long periods of time, seeing this sort of, and how seriously it's all taken and how emotional everybody's getting about it and how seriously they take it. You say to someone, it appears on TV here, and you'll say to someone, what do you think about this? And everybody takes it so seriously. Nobody I've spoken to about it so far has said, who cares, it'll be all right. Everybody goes, yes, it's very interesting, and what will happen, and oh dear, it's amazing. So I don't know if you guys are seeing it in your countries, if it made it. Someone said to me today, it'll be all over the world. They'll be talking about it all over the world. I said, no, they won't. No, they won't. On maybe some entertainment program somewhere might talk about it, but I can't imagine it's going to be on the news anywhere. And they didn't understand that. They're saying, really? But wouldn't it be, isn't this world news? No, it's not world news. It's not. I think because they could see it all over the TV here and all over the media here, that they assumed it'd be a bit the same outside Japan. It's like, no, fair bet lots of foreigners don't know who SMAP are, or care. And then if you did tell them this story, I'm sure a lot of you guys are sitting there thinking, what, why? Why? But interesting, very interesting. Lots when you're watching these sort of things here, even though the topic or the point or the subject might not be very sort of interesting, quite often it's a real interesting insight into Japanese culture. It's like, here's the deep bowing again. Tears in the eyes, deep bowing. Anytime anybody does anything a little bit naughty or breaks any sort of rule or breaks any sort of way of, upsets the waves, makes ripples. Anybody makes any ripples or upsets anybody or causes any waves, you see the deep bowing and the big apologising thing. We've showed you a few videos of this, haven't we? The AKB-48 girl and the Toyota people in Japan, in America, when the Prius braking problem happened and stuff. So anyway, there it was. That's more than enough said on that topic. Let's not talk about that ever again. More videos coming soon.